For Victims and Villains, my name is Josh, and today we are jumping into the Stephen King adaptation. This is The Long Walk. So The Long Walk is an adaptation of the Stephen King story that tells us a story of a group of young men who literally go on a long walk, and boy howdy. As a novel, this movie is already thematically one of the bleakest and heaviest books that I have read in recent memory, and Stephen King is a mastermind behind a multitude of stories that range from It to Carrie to The Green Mile and several other iconic stories, and this one is not for the faint of heart. I will say this is probably one of the best book-to-film adaptations I've ever come across, and I will even say this is probably one of the best Stephen King movies we've ever gotten. And Stephen King has a iconic bibliography, and when you translate that into film, it also translates into some of film's most iconic moments, ranging from The Shining to Doctor Sleep to Carrie, Green Mile, a lot of the books that I've already mentioned so far, and I really do think that The Long Walk definitely has a place among those pantheons. Franics Lawrence delivers a almost masterpiece of a movie. This is an incredible, exceptional piece of art. And I want to say that this is not just a film, but this is an piece of art that I think will go down as one of King's most underappreciated stories, but also this movie just fires on all cylinders. It's really the thing that I think makes this movie so incredible kind of boils down to a few different things. First and foremost comes the script by JT Mollner. Mollner does a just stellar job at adapting King's work here. Like I said, this is probably one of the best Stephen King adaptations we've ever gotten and may ever see. Second is actually going to be the score from Jeremiah Freites. This movie does not work as well as it does without Freites' score. To say that it does would be a massive disservice to the mastery that he does here. This movie drew such an emotional connection out of me, and it's primarily because of Freites. There are so many moments in this movie that nearly brought me to tears that I can't even remember the last time a movie actually did that. And a lot of it kind of goes hand in hand, but it's really Freites, the score by Freites, that really brings this emotional level to an entirely almost otherworldly experience. This movie is bleak as fuck and is not for the faint of heart. I think last but not least, you have to, and most importantly, talk about this ensemble cast. It would almost feel disrespectful if you didn't highlight the incredible performances here of this cast. Obviously, everyone knows from the trailers and from the marketing, Mark Hamill's a big deal in this movie, and Mark Hamill's incredible, but he is probably my least favorite performance in this movie. Cooper Hoffman and David Jonsson play Ray Garrity and Peter McFreeze, who in the book were that their dynamic was the anchor of that story, and to have a just truly amazing, phenomenal cast here that is able to replicate that, again, breathes life into what a great adaptation this is, but the performances here are just, I feel like I don't even have words. But it is my job to have some semblance of words, and these guys are just phenomenal. Like, exceptional, great, whatever word you want to throw at them to speak of high praise, both of these characters and both these performances absolutely embody it. And that's honestly one of the biggest strong suits of The Long Walk is its cast, is its ensemble. And I don't know if it's necessarily the direction from Lawrence or if it's the script from Mollner or if it is really just one of the best casted films we've seen this year. This cast is just absolutely insanely talented. Whether you're talking here about the performances from Hamill, Jonsson, or Hoffman, or even some of the secondary cast here as well, with Garrett Wuring, Tut Nuot, I probably mispronounced that name, Charlie Plummer, Ben Wang, and that list just kind of goes on and on. Even if there is only one or two lines from a character, there are some really memorable performances and memorable moments in this movie. And I think it really helps elevate the emotional stakes alongside of the score from Frades. I think one of the most fascinating things about this movie is the fact that it is literally about 50 dudes who just walk at a steady pace until there's only one man standing. Now, on paper, that doesn't really sound like a compelling film, but again, it's this film just feels like the perfect storm. Whether you're talking about the inspiration from King's book, you're talking about the script, you talk about the directing, you talk about the cast and the chemistry between the cast. This movie just works on every imaginable front. And this film just has a magnificent emotional core that really elevates to where it really hurts when you see characters no longer with us. And I'll be honest, it's really rare that I can connect with characters as quickly as this. And with that said, the pacing in this movie is impeccable and immaculate. With that said, I am ready to run this one through our Rorschach rating scale. I'm going to go ahead and give The Long Walk a 4.5 out of 5. Overall, this movie is, like I said, one of the best Stephen King adaptations we have ever gotten. Whether you're talking about the script, the score, the cast, this movie just has everything that you want. And I will also throw this out there that this movie is very bleak. This movie is very heavy handed and definitely feels like it wears the emotional capacity of a war film. That's like the best way that I can describe it. This movie is absolutely incredible. It's masterfully paced, but also at the same time, it is the emotional core of this movie and its cast of characters that really just makes this a cut above the rest and will no doubt leave this one as one of this year's best films. All right, if you guys have seen The Long Walk or read the book, comment below. Let me know if you guys have read and seen both. Let me know what you guys compare. Do you prefer the book? Do you prefer the movie? Comment below and let me know. But let's talk about mental health, shall we? If you guys are new to our content, Mental Health Moment is where we will take a theme of mental health out of the film which we're reviewing, talk about it for a few moments in the hopes to deconstruct the stigma surrounding mental health. There's a moment in the film's third act where they're having a little bit of that vulnerability I was referring to, and Peter essentially kind of talks about how rough it has been for him growing up, and I kind of just felt like life is always this giant scape of darkness, but he says that he always looks for the light, and he says, and I quote, "It's hard. It's fucking hard every day, but it's worth fighting for." Now, I don't know what brought you to this video. I don't know what the circumstances of your life are. I look around at some of my own circumstances sometimes and question whether it is worth to keep fighting and keep searching for that light, and it 100% is. One of the things about darkness, depression, anxiety, whatever you want to choose to call it, is that it almost wears this mask to where it feels like it blinds you and actually prevents you from seeing the light. And like Peter says, it's hard. You really have to fight for it, and you really have to want to have a desire to step out of said darkness and step into the light. As a suicide loss survivor myself, I think it's always important to choose life. I always think that there's a reason to stay here until tomorrow. But again, I don't know your circumstances. I don't know what brought you to this video, or I don't know what life is throwing at you. But I promise that life is always worth fighting for. It is always worth being here until tomorrow. So please stay with us. If you or someone you know is struggling with suicide, addiction, self-harm, or depression, please click the link in our show notes below to check out our mental health resource library. Long Walk is now playing in theaters everywhere from Lionsgate, and you guys can find show times wherever you are in the show notes below, along with links to our social media, how to support us financially, more movie reviews like this, links to our podcast network, and that follow button. So until next time, remember to keep it classy.